I am so excited for this video, lovelies. I'm going to be digging into a couple of the things from the Natasha Denona My Dream collection. I have both of the palettes, the face and the eye palette. I am going to be using those today, show you a couple looks in case you're looking for more inspiration. I'm going to, of course, give you all my thoughts on it, and I'm going to do lots of comparison swatches. When I post it on Instagram, what all of you would like to see, because I know that I'm getting this content up a little bit later than a lot of other people, I really wanted to bring value so that it would be helpful for you. And a lot of people said that they wanted to see more comparison swatches. So I'm going to dig up some of my other mainstream palettes, my indie singles. It's going to be a swatch fest up in here. Now, that also means that this might be a lengthier video, so everything will be timestamped because I want to respect your time. I really value you taking the time out of your day to spend it watching some of my content, and so this way, hopefully it will make it easier for you to find what is most helpful. But if we haven't met before, my name is Kelly, and I'm a professional hair and makeup artist. And here on my channel, I strive to keep beauty real. Real honest, real relatable, and real fun. So if that sounds like something you'd enjoy, don't forget to click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. But we're gonna dive right in, and I'm gonna give you my thoughts. I've already done some swatching here. Now, I'm not going to take too much time on the swatches of this palette. It was more for me to see what I want to dig my little fingers or makeup brushes into, but I will be showing you them up close if you haven't really seen them much, if you want to see them on my skin tone. Although right now, if you are new to my channel, I feel like I am quite tan. It probably doesn't help that I'm wearing a white shirt, but I did just get back from working in the Santa Monica area for a couple days, and I was lucky enough to get some time to stroll along the beach. And I just spent my birthday, which was yesterday, at the spa, sitting outside, trying to soak up the vitamin D. We were in the pools, the hot tubs, etc., etc. So I definitely, despite sunscreen, I've definitely gotten a little bit more color. So I'm probably a shade or two darker than I normally would be. But I'm excited to try these out, and especially with the face palette, because I'm going to be curious to see what that looks like on my skin tone. I was hesitant to buy it. I will say I was not hesitant to buy the palette. However, right away when I saw this palette, I was like, this is sort of a dream combo for me. This is sort of a dream combo for me because it has some cooler berry tones. It has some beautiful, like toasty, almost what I like to call peach brulee shades. I'm really excited to dig into this one. This, for me, I think the last Natasha Denona palette I bought was retro. And for me, I can already say if this performs well, I'm going to like it more than retro because it just isn't as monochromatic. And I really like the opportunities that this has, but I haven't touched it yet. So who knows, it might be junk. I doubt it's gonna be junk, but I am really excited to dig into this one. But like I said, this might be a lengthier video despite timestamps, so we're gonna get into this right now. All right, here we have the swatches of the Natasha Denona My Dream palette. I am not going to go through and name all of these at this point. I'm sure you've all seen videos with lots of content with the original swatches of these, but I did want to show them and just talk a little bit about a few of the notable ones. I will also, towards the end of this video, because that is again what was highly requested, is do some swatch comparisons to other palettes that I have, other indie singles that I have, and that will of course all be time-stamped as well, again towards the end of the video. But off of first impressions, now I am someone who firmly believes that the way something swatches does not necessarily have anything to do with the way that it applies. But right away, if you were going to call something blackest black, it better be pretty dang black. I'm definitely going to use this one on one eye for like a really deep look just to see how much we can build this up. I did, of course, see, you know, the different PR looks that Natasha did, or at least someone from her team did, using this, and it did look dark, but right there I was like, that's not so black. What are a couple of the other ones? So, of course, these couple multi-chromes, you're seeing more of the rosiness than the gold. I will make sure when we do the comparison swatches that you see that. But this shade, I think there are a lot of dupes for. You're all probably thinking of the one that I'm going to pull out. And then, of course, this one, Vision, is the one that everyone's talking about and wanting to know, like, comparisons for. So I'll go into that. But I know that everyone is excited about the shimmers, the duochromes, or what have you, the multi-chromes. But, you know, for me, I really do. Natasha Denona's mattes are usually why I'm buying her palettes, because I do think that they perform really nicely. So I'm definitely excited to dive into a few of these today. Also, I love a good, like, light. This shade, I have another one that I want to dig into to see how it is. But these, like, sort of like warm blushy shades. I love that there's a beautiful like light shade in here. I cannot wait to dig into these. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, now that I and all of you have gotten to see these swatches, I'm trying to plan out where I want to go with this. Like I mentioned, I do want to do something with Black is Black just to see how far we can push it. So I'll probably have one like super high drama eye. I mean, I know everyone is using this Vision shade. I feel like everybody has used it. And so that makes me less likely to use it because everyone has been using it, especially since I am going to do some swatch comparisons. I feel like some of these other shades I've seen used less. So I think I'm gonna try to go an alternate direction. If you do want to see a look using Vision, let me know. I can totally do that, or follow me on Instagram because I'm sure I'll do it at some point. I just feel like everybody's gone there. So I don't know. I mean, these, I'm telling you, these like peach brulee shades, we're gonna pop those in somewhere. I really love the berries. We'll see. I really want to use a little bit of all of Natasha's formulas, so that's going to be key for me as well. Really, this is just all about playing, and I can't wait to try this out to give you my opinions. So let's just start out. I feel like let's start out with our lighter look, and then we'll build into some high drama. Now, really quickly, since I'm wearing white, I'm gonna wipe these off. These shades like Unity and Carpe Diem are like they're my dream shades. Like these two right here, I think are just gonna be so beautiful. I will also say, I think most Natasha Denona mattes, especially the creamier formulas, they can pull up much darker on the eye than they appear in the pan. So that is something to keep in mind, in my opinion, if maybe you haven't ever used a Natasha Denona eyeshadow palette, maybe you're really intrigued by the story and this is the first one you might purchase. This is, by the way, the midi size. It is $69 full price. I'm sorry I hadn't said that already, but let's go ahead and dive in. Let's start out with Unity just because it is the lighter shade. Now, to prep my eyes, I did go through and I just used my concealer. This is what I do 90% of the time. I just use my concealer, and I did use a light dusting of powder. What did I use today? The Hourglass Veil Finishing, especially with Natasha Denona, because her mattes can get a bit extra dark. They blend beautifully, but because they can get a little extra dark, I do find that I like to use a dusting of translucent powder just to sort of give a buffer there, because then I can always keep building more and the shadow doesn't like stick to my damp concealer lid, if you will. So that's a little trick if you found that sometimes like they get like a little like, ooh, if you want a little security blanket there, a little like, what's that thing that like if you're on a tightrope, the thing that's underneath it, a safety net is, yeah, a safety net. My goodness. Yep, a safety net. I am feeling a little off. This is strange. But anyway, a safety net, that will be that for you. Okay, let's go ahead and start. So maybe I'll do this as like a little like more natural halo eye. I was just looking through some pictures and I was like, you know what? I have not done a halo eye in a while. So that would be kind of fun. I think we've got the colors in here that we can do that with. So you can see that this Unity shade has really built up really nicely, and I think it looks a little darker on my eye than it does in the pan. So, I mean, you could use an even fluffier brush and not build this up as much, but you do have the chance to like get this color pretty deep. Okay, I am struggling a little bit because I personally, and I haven't watched a lot of videos yet, but I haven't seen a lot of people use, well, actually, I haven't seen a lot of people use Thrill or Invention. Like I said, everybody kind of focused on Vision. Am I going to be able to use this one? Okay, maybe we can use Thrill as our inner corner shade. I mean, it's kind of a bit dark for that, but I really kind of want to try to use Invention. You know what? I think I'm just going to pack this on the entire lid, just like a light wash, just in case, because that Invention, what formula is that? So that's one of her diamond colors or whatever. Gosh, how am I supposed to read this? It's so freaking tiny. Okay, seriously, and I talked about this, I think, with the retro palette, but if you are going to have all of these formula types, so this is a DCS. If you're going to have all of these little like codes, but you don't talk, there's nowhere on the box that tells you what the heck it is. Ugh, DCS, there's DC and DCS. At any rate, that's super annoying. Whatever the heck one that is, that Invention shade, it looks like it might be like a builder or almost like a, I'm sure you can totally get it up to opacity, but in case there's a little bit of like shimmer through, I don't want to have a naked lid, so I'm just dusting this down. Wow, This is already probably 10 minutes into the video. Sorry, everybody. Okay, I mean, this color, you could just quickly whisk this on, throw a little bronzer on, a little lip gloss, and be out the door. Now, I do think for this, I am gonna go through with my finger. Yeah, see this feel? It totally feels like it's not gonna be completely opaque. I bet if you use a wet brush or a glitter glue, you can build it up. I just usually, like, I almost always wet my brush just because I like to avoid the fallout, but I very, very rarely use a glitter glue. And so I don't want to do that when I'm first trying out a shadow. I mean, this is pretty, but it definitely, I would have been disappointed if I had not put an eyeshadow on underneath that color. Okay, so we can see what it's gonna look like with like a dry finger. I'm gonna get a wet brush quick. Apologies if the beginning of this video was a little funky with the focus. I had the focus on from when I was doing my swatches earlier and didn't change the settings, but I did wanna show you the texture of this, what is it? Invention shade. It's that like kind of hard to pick up, dry, flaky, yet smushy thing. Okay, oh, I just got a little bit more. So, I mean, this brush usually picks up shadow really well. This is the E15 from Layer Fay. But anyway, I wanted to show you that. So I'm just gonna wet this with, of course, some Fix Plus. I hope I didn't just give that shade Hard Pan from using my finger with it. Okay, so using a wet brush definitely made it a bit shinier, and it took down the like flaky, glittery texture that it had. So depending on what you like to see, but I mean, I was a little bit more impressed with this in my finger swatch. I'm gonna try like layering now that my lid is wet. I'm gonna put a little bit of this over the top. But as I was saying, I was a little bit more impressed with this in my swatch on my arm than on my eyeball. Okay, I like it. I think that this would be really cool to layer over one of the deeper purpley shades, perhaps. So we're gonna take the Wayne Goss 20 brush. I'm gonna go into Familia, which is that, I think I was calling it like a pecan shade, and I'm just gonna deepen out the outer and the inner corner. Oh yeah, I did get a little bit of fallout from using that Invention shade Dry. This shade is very pretty. I don't know if it's from popping it over Invention, but it has this beautiful like reddish brown warmth to it. Oh, so good. Okay, that is really pretty. I'm gonna take that original brush. Did I say what this was, by the way? This is the Wayne Goss 18. I don't think I did. And I'm just like blurring that edge just a little bit. I've got so much fallout right here. So a little trick that I had gotten from Jennifer from My Decadent Life. I think that's right. I think that's her Instagram. At any rate, I will have her link down below, but it was to use this like arts and crafts tape. I don't even remember what it's called. You could also try the tape that's like meant for, you know, like sharp winged liner, but this is actually pretty delicate tape. I have to say, if I didn't already have like some foundation or tinted moisturizer rather and some concealer down, I don't know that I'd put like tape right on my skin. And yes, this does take up maybe a little bit of my concealer and powder, but I'm okay with that. It really does work well to get the glitter up. So thank you, Jennifer, for that, because it really does help. And then I can just easily go back through and like touch up a little bit of concealer. So, ooh, okay. I mean, that really, this look isn't light. This look isn't light. Which I had a feeling when I was looking through here, I'm like, there's not a lot that's gonna give you a light look in this, but it is easy and quick. So there you go. Now, like I said, I totally could go through and add a bit of concealer, but I'm just gonna take the Wayne Goss airbrush. Was that what this one was? There's nothing on it. I think it was the airbrush. But I'm just gonna like wiggle whatever I have left of that translucent powder underneath. It's fine. I don't need to have like crazy full coverage. We're just playing here. I am noticing that my eyes are feeling really dry, so I'm gonna go put some eye drops in. I'll be right back. Okay, so now I think just honestly so that I can try another shade, I'm gonna take Risk. That was this pretty like reddy, rusty shade here. I'm gonna take that and run that along my lower lash line. I'm gonna start out with it dry. And by the way, I'm using a Katie Jane Hughes 21 brush with Spectrum. And I'm just using like really delicate strokes to hopefully avoid getting even more shimmer all over my eyeball area here. So this shade, I would say, yeah, I mean, if you use it dry, personally, I think that that is more of like a, by today's standards anymore, it's more of like a satin, you know, it's not like, I mean, it's not super high shim. Now that's obviously, I mean, it's very pretty, but it's not gonna be like a wet foiled metallic shade. Like if I build this back up, it's definitely more, you know, it's like a more satin shimmer. So just keep that in mind. To add, to kind of like mimic, I think I'm gonna top the lower lash line. I don't even know if you're gonna be able to even see it, but I'm gonna take a little bit on the same brush because I'm lazy, but on the same brush, I'm gonna dampen that Invention shade. And then we're gonna try to just pop that right in the middle of the eye where I placed it on the upper lid. The positive thing about doing that is if I do get any shimmer fallout on the top, maybe just having a little bit right here will make it look more purposeful. I like this. This is very, very fall vibes to me. Like, I'm really liking it. I do feel like, oh, we still have to put on an inner corner. I was gonna say, like, I feel like my inner corner is kind of dark. So let's go ahead and go through with that Thrill shade. What am I gonna put it on here? Let's use this little Luxie mini flat angled brush. All right, so let's go through with the shade Thrilled. Now this shade, of course, if you know me, it gives me, it's like Divina Tucana had a, honestly, y'all, this is like not even Divina Tucana light. This is sort of like if LaCroix made a Tucana flavor. Does that make sense? Like, you know how sparkling water is just like a whisper of the flavor? This is a whisper of Tucana. As far as like the brilliance, the shift, it's pretty, but it's, you know, it's not blowing up my skirt. I'll say that much, but it's pretty. It depends on what your aesthetic is, right? Like if I didn't want to be like ba-bam, this is very nice. It's just like, what is that in her inner corner? And that's okay too. So I'm gonna throw on some mascara. I'm not gonna do liner. I might do some inner rim liner, but I'm not gonna do anything on my actual lid. Be right back. Okay, so here we have look number 1. I did go ahead, I just went through with the Charlotte Tilbury Legendary Lashes Volume 2 mascara. Honestly, I probably need to open up a new mascara soon, and I'm trying to decide which one to do. So I'm just kind of using what I have until they're on their last legs. At any rate, that's the one that I used. And then I went through with this Urban Decay Amber. This is what's in my lower waterline. By the way, wasn't that probably nice? Amber? Anyway, so now we're gonna move into the other side. First impressions, I really like this look. It's a warm, toasty, pretty look. The shimmers aren't like super shim, but it's very pretty. Boy, I'm pulling out all my Wayne Goss brushes today, I feel like. So I'm gonna take the Wayne Goss number 5, and we're gonna use this as a liner brush, and we're just gonna start with this shade, Blackest Black, and we're gonna start with this color really close to the lash line. We'll see how far out I end up taking it. And by the way, I am going through with this dry. I have to say, this color is quite black. Yeah, that's a good black. It's a good black, and I like the fact that it is not, you know, it's a fairly true black. It's not like a super charcoaly black. It's not a like purple black. It's not a reddish black. It's a pretty good true to tone black. It is, I mean, when it blends out, it does get gray because, you know, as you diffuse black, that's what it becomes. But it's not like that, again, charcoal. You know what I'm saying? Like that one that almost shifts a little bit into gray even before it's blended out. I really like this. So now let's use one of these cream to powders. You know what? Why don't we use, let's use Edgy on the outside and Instinct on the inside. So this one is Instinct and this one is Edgy. We'll use the two of them together. So I'm gonna start out with this teeny tiny flat definer brush. I can't remember what this collection was called, but this is Sonia G. And I'm gonna start using Instinct in here, and then I'll use the same brush, just flip it over and use Edgy on the outside. Okay, so now that I have both of these cream to powders down, I'm gonna take an E36 brush from Sigma. I love this shape of this brush. And this is gonna be what I use to just blend out that shadow before I go through with another shade, just because I find that because these are so creamy, they can get a little out of control. And I want to just like soften this edge. I see a little bit of patchiness right there. I'll go back through with that lighter shade, but I'm just gonna soften this edge before I go through with any transitional powder mats, just to kind of blur that. I feel like this just gives me a little bit of control so I don't end up with this deep color like all the way up. But boy, you could certainly just do this, like keep blending a bit more, like blend up a little bit higher. And I mean, I'm gonna have to fix that patchy spot right there, but that could be like that could be a look of its own. This also is one of the reasons why I like to use that translucent powder, because I personally find that these cream to powder shades can get a little patchy. And honestly, I think it's just because of the pigmentation. They just can be a lot. And so they are, for me, I mean, on one hand, they're so easy to blend out because they're so creamy. You can really like push them out a ways, but I think that they are easy to blend apart. Like as you're blending, I feel like you can just get them a little bit patchy because they're so pigmented. You can lay it down too heavy on a spot, which is, you know, one of the reasons, like, okay, so Divina, for instance, I talk about Divina mats a lot and how it's like, you know, they don't always swatch the best, but they perform beautifully because they do build up really nicely and softly so that you have a bit of control. So if you find that like really creamy shades like this, sometimes you're like, it just doesn't work for me, then you might want to try a formula like that. But in this, you know, it's just in experimentation, it's in practice, it's finding the brushes that you like to use with it. Okay, now on another E36, a completely clean one, I'm gonna take some of that Carpe Diem shade. That's this one right here. It's that darker of the two warm peachy shades. And I'm gonna use that to like blend this edge. I just wanna bring a bit more warmth into this look. Now here you can see, so this shade on the outside is that Carpe Diem shade, and this is Unity, right? So Unity is, I would say, less of a rosy brown, like a rosy peachy brown. Oh, I still got some patchiness there I gotta deal with. But this is like a little bit more warm neutral. This has like a little bit of that like peachy, pinky-ness to it. Let's see if I pull this in, if that helps with some of that patchiness. And it's just right there where my lid likes to move a little bit. This is a beautiful like sunset eye. I haven't used a shimmer. I haven't used a shimmer in this look, and you know what? I'm okay with that. I'm gonna use a matte on the lower lash line. I'm gonna pop a little shimmer on the inside, but I don't think I'm gonna use another one of these shimmers. I think what now a lot of people would do is go right over the top of this with Venom, like right over this, and just be like, it would be holy crap amazing. but I don't think I want to do that. Maybe at the very end of this video, I will do that just so that you can see what it looks like. So at the end of this look, that's what I'll do. I do have some fallout to clean up on this side too, but we're gonna wait. Let's go ahead and do the lower lash line quickly. You know what, just to use another color in here, let's go through with that dark brown. This one right here, this Aspiration shade. It's like a cocoa-y brown, I would say. Now, before we do the lower lash line, I did layer those two cream to powders right over Blackest Black. I'm going to take this Wayne Goss again and just like right at the very, very lash line, wiggle a little bit of Blackest Black right back into my lashes. This is totally something I would do before putting on my face makeup most of the time. Like anytime I'm using black shadow, I'm totally gonna like do my makeup, my face makeup last, but you know, we're living on the edge here. Okay, that looks nice. It just defines the lash line a little bit more. So then we'll go through, I'm gonna clean off the same brush and use Aspiration on the lower lash line, and then that's probably it. So let's go ahead and run this one along the lower lash line, and this one is a creamy matte formula. This is another one of those formulas that can, it can go a long way. So start with a little bit, start with a small brush, and you know, you can slowly work your way out. You know how I was saying that I liked how the Blackest Black didn't have that like purpley undertone? This brown has that like purpley cocoa-y undertone to it. It's really pretty. All right, at this point, I have a lot to clean up down here, so I'm gonna do that really quickly and just throw on some mascara. We can do the inner corner once I've got this all like cleaned up and I'm feeling a little bit less messy. All right, I went through with this Lancome Drama Liquid Pencil in the shade Empule, and I really like it. It was just like a pop of purple. And same mascara, and I just did one coat because I feel like if I'm going to pop that Vision color over the top, I'm going to need another coat of mascara because I'm probably gonna get some on my lashes. So now we're very quickly just gonna go through, and I think we'll use Spontaneous. And we will do the inner corner. Let's see, I'm just gonna grab this like little lip brush. What is this? And oh, it's actually an inner corner brush from Sigma, excuse me. And we'll pop that in just for a little brightness. I think that, you know, for me, a look like this really needs a little light, especially because my inner corners are just naturally kind of dark. So I'm not gonna use too much of this. I think I might try to use the new highlight as well in this area. So we're just gonna like leave this soft, but that way you can see, I mean, again, like I'm sure if you just totally cram this on, if you wet your brush, it's gonna look like really pretty luminous. So I like that. And actually now, I mean, I don't think if you have any lighter skin than I do, you would be able to use that Thrill shade as an inner corner. But if you're my skin tone or darker, it does make a pretty little like subtle pop. Okay, before I go through and add that Vision on, I do want to play with the face palette. So this of course is the blush and highlighter palette. You know, I'm a sucker for a cream product. We have two of them in here. We have the cream blush and the glow cream base, and then the Dream Glow. So while there are instructions on the back, you could really use these in any combination you want. I don't have on any bronzer, believe it or not, because I just wanted to see what this looks like. So we're gonna go through and play right now. So let's go ahead and start out. We'll do what Natasha says here. I think I'm actually just gonna use my fingers. Honestly, this is the one time that I enjoy using my fingers, is when I'm working with like a cream cheek product. So we'll try that on one side using fingers, and then we'll try a brush on the other. So this cream blush. Okay, this does not feel like a cream. This feels like something. No, I'm actually almost like worried that I'm gonna get like hard pan from using my finger in this product. This feels like a very silky powder. It feels like the Haus Labs Velvet Sculpt Bronzer. It has that kind of feel to it. Honestly, not even as silky as that. This isn't even like a cream to powder. This is like a powder. Okay, I'm gonna see like how much I can like build up here. Like I said, we're gonna use a brush on the other side. So Sorry about the like breakouts. I tell you what, my skin has been freaking out in the past like 3 weeks. I don't know if it's the stress, if it's all the travel. I haven't been eating the greatest, so that could be it too, but man, my body is not happy with me. So I've got like a little buildup of product right there, but. Okay, as a cream blush lover, right now I'm not that enthused. Okay, we're gonna take a different finger here. And we're gonna take the Glow Cream Base. This is definitely way more creamy. Okay, that's really pretty. This is very thin textured. It does feel like it's going to dry down a bit. That could just be because we have that like powder underneath. It's not, I was worried. No, it's not picking up the color from underneath. I still feel like I see it even when it's not like right in the light. Okay. You know what? I'm gonna let that sit for a second and we'll do this side. So let's go ahead and start out with the Glow Cream Base. Oh, I was gonna use a brush. Hold on. Okay, I've got a brush. I've got the tapered highlighter brush from Sigma. Oh, it's a Sigma and Wayne Goste, y'all. Honestly, I think I would probably just use this with my finger all the time, but we're going through. Okay, I am like seriously kind of worried about using a brush. I'm gonna use the same brush, but I'm gonna use the other side because I feel like if you got a really creamy product in with this, it would create hard pan. Like, because it doesn't feel like a cream, it feels powder. I feel duped. I mean, and it's not because it's matte, because it is matte. It is definitely a matte blush. It's not even, it's not satin. It's not, nope, it's matte. It's like maybe kind of like skin finish matte, not like chalky matte, right? But like it's matte. Okay, I can definitely tell. So this is the Glow Cream Base underneath with the blush over the top. That looks very, very pretty. It looks just like healthy skin, glowy skin with blush on top, in my opinion. So this definitely looks like I'm wearing a bit of highlighter. I like both looks. I like both looks a lot. This is probably my everyday right now, like amount of highlighter that I want on my face. So I'm just gonna feel this. It's not fully, it's not tacky. It just feels really moisturized, if that makes any sense. All right, so now let's take this Morphe 510 brush into Dream Glow. You know what? I haven't even swatched these yet. So this is all like, obviously I hadn't swatched them. Otherwise I probably wouldn't have not had that reaction just now, but I probably should have swatched. Okay, anyway, we're taking Dream Glow over the top on this side. With my skin acting up like it is, I never would do this, but we're doing it. We're doing it for you. Okay, okay. I feel like this palette is slowly redeeming itself. So obviously this is the like ba-bam side. This is a little softer. This is, I am wearing highlighter. This is, I just had a facial and I'm hydrated and I put on some great makeup, in my opinion. Okay, so I want to really quickly, I'm just gonna take that brush that we use for our inner corner. I'm gonna take Dream Glow and I'm gonna pop it into the inner corner on this side because this would be something that I think like if I was doing a quick look and I pulled out a palette that didn't have a light enough highlight shade for me, I'd want something that I could use on my eye, you know? So like, I feel like that's nice because you have this face palette where you can get this on your cheeks and then just easily like tap into the highlighter and like pop it where you want it. Pop it where you want it. I like it. Okay, I'm pleased. Now all we have to do is we're gonna go ahead and amp up this eye look with that Vision shade. Let's go ahead. So really quick, I wanted to take some pictures of this look without Vision over the top. So I just threw on a little gloss in case it looks like all of a sudden my lips are more healthy. I just wanted something to like give a little bit of a hydrated look as I took the pictures, but I'm really, really liking this. So I do have some thoughts. There are some pros and some cons, but I'm really liking it in general. So now let's go ahead and move into Vision. All right, so for the sake of testing, I really think we should try this dry first and then we'll go over and try it wet if need be. So I'm gonna use the same brush. I just wiped it off. This is the E15 from Layer Fay. It's just a big daddy Big Daddy Fat Flat Shader. Fat Flat Shader. Yep, that's what I was trying to say. I just wasn't sure if I said it right. So again, you can just kind of see that like shift, right? It's pretty. Okay. I mean, damn, that is pretty sexy, I'm not gonna lie. Okay. It's shifty, but it is subtle. And it's not creamy. I feel like it's satiny. I mean, it's satiny and a little textury, like not like chunky, but up close, I feel like I see like the micro particles of the product. So let's go ahead. We'll give her her best life and we'll go through with it wet. Okay, it is pretty. It is very, very pretty. If you are looking for, this is like baby's first multi-chrome. You know what I'm saying? Like it's, it's a pretty shade. I will say the wet application, it did amp it up a little bit, but it also took away a little bit of that texture, like in a good way. I like it. It's, to me, it's kind of like a satin. I'm spoiled, y'all. If you are new to my channel, I have a lot of indie multi-chromes. Not the most of everybody, but I have a lot. And so like this, while it's pretty, it's more understated. It's that like, ooh, like, you know, it's like seeing a sexy bra strap rather than like just openly outward lingerie. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I'm gonna go with that. So I do. All right, so I will be honest, it has been a hot minute. I saw that I had a premiere for the last video that went up. I had my premiere tonight and I was like, oh, and I wanted to go get a decaf Americano. So I ran, got a decaf Americano, came home, had the chat. Thank you to everybody who joined. Now I'm back. So let's talk about this launch. So the one thing that I didn't say at the beginning of this video that I'm surprised I didn't say is how drawn in I was by this packaging. Before I even saw the inside, I was drawn in by this. And obviously, I'm sure again, you've all seen it, but it does replicate the packaging and the palette. I freaking love this. I am a sucker for a splatter, especially there's something about this nude and black that is just, I love it. I love it so much. So I was like, yeah, I want this. I do not need the lipstick, but I want the lipstick just because the packaging is so cute. I don't need the lipstick. I'm not getting the lipstick. I have more than enough lipstick to get me by for a while. And I feel like that is a color that I either have, or in all honesty, even if I did have it, I wouldn't reach for it that much. So that's how I feel about that. Let's see how I feel about this. So $69. Let's start there. $69. This palette is so flippin' pretty. And I also think that there are so many ways that you can use this to create looks. Okay, let's get out retro for a minute. So this palette, it is just much more monochromatic. You know, I mean, it's not like you have a couple like warm-ish shades, but they're still warm rosy shades. You have a couple like slightly taupey shades, but all in all, if you blindly, like if you take a light, a medium, and a deep, and a shimmer from this palette, all of the combinations that you come up with are probably gonna kind of look the same-ish. They're gonna be beautiful, but they're all gonna be kind of the same-ish. Whereas at least in here, you have some warm tones, and not even just like slightly warm. I feel like this is a pretty dang warm eye. This shade definitely like was needed in this palette to bring a little bit of that in. You have these shades here, you know, the kind of more like berry shades, and you have some good staple neutrals. Like you have a beautiful black, which I was more impressed with than I thought I was going to be, thankfully. You have a beautiful purple. You have that deep brown, that aspiration that's like a good brown with a little bit of something. You have like that beautiful rich Familia shade. So I just think it's very well balanced. Now, that being said, it's a very well balanced, very beautiful palette. Do I think that there is a single thing in this palette that you can't get from another brand? No. Do I think that there's a single thing in this palette that I think that you can't get from another brand for less money? No. Probably not. Now formulas, that's where things are going to shift. Like, I'll be honest, you all know how I feel about Natasha Denona shimmers. I mean, when I was still mostly doing mainstream makeup, I thought that they were really nice. They are nice, but they are just shimmers with a lowercase s. If you want like shimmers, then you have to kind of look elsewhere. Like, hands down, I still prefer Sydney Grace over Natasha Denona when it comes to the shimmers. Now, Sydney Grace doesn't really have that many like duo / multi-chromes, but let's face it, these aren't exactly, they're not something that anyone's gonna write home about being fantastic compared to any other indie brand, right? So that's that. The mattes are beautiful. I didn't really have a problem with anything other than, as to be expected, the frickin' creamy mattes that I personally find, especially on skin that moves around a bit as we get older, they can get a little patchy with the brush, because between the stickability, not a word, the stickability of that hitting your lid and kind of like a little skid mark, and also that pigmentation just being so rich and so deep, there's not a lot of room for error with those. But you can also get beautiful color out of them, and they do blend really nicely once you get it laid down evenly. And that's the key. Okay, so all in all in this palette, I do have a couple thoughts. I feel like, I mean, on my finger, and I wish that I had talked about this before I went through and put vision over the top of this look, but on my finger, I feel like these still look pretty close. I think for this palette, especially because these are both the same formula type, they should have been colors that were more different from each other. And both of the berry shades in here, both of the matte berry shades are that cream to powder formula. So you don't have a regular matte or even a creamy matte to really get that textural difference. So I do think that that's missing in here. There should be one shade. Honestly, I think you could have done with just one of these. This is what I would want. If this were my dream palette, but it's not, it's Natasha's, that's fine. But if this were mine, I think I prefer this beautiful, like a little bit more pink toned berry over the purpley one. That's just me because I don't do purples a lot. Keep this, replace this one with something even as deep as this, or even in this tone, but make it more of a regular matte formula. Especially since Natasha's mattes are just so beautiful. I think that would have been lovely. I also feel like that Risk shade that I showed, that rusty one that went underneath my my lash line, and maybe I'll feel differently when I use this over a cream to powder, or you know, maybe when I use my brush wet, but that shade for me is just a like, I just feel like there's so many ways to make a shimmer look less shimmy, but there's not really that many ways. Like, once you get there, you're there. I mean, when it comes to shimmers, I'd rather just have something that still looks good when I use it dry, but if I want to, I can use it with a slightly less densely packed brush to chill it out a little bit. And then I can also wet it to like amp it up to the gods, right? But with something like this, there's only so much you can do. Like, even wetting it, you're only gonna get so much from it. So that's the only thing. Let's see, I didn't use Serenity, but I have a feeling I'm gonna feel kind of the same way about that one. But this is like a good staple. This actually kind of reminds me of, that was like the most awkward swatch ever. It's more for me to see than for you, but this reminds me a little bit of the shade in the original Wayne Goss palette. Is that Imperial Topaz? But that one, like, just like a beautiful, I have to say I like the formula of this better because it's a little bit creamier, but it has that just nice, works on everybody taupey brown situation. It's gonna be pretty, it's just not like, whoa. And what's the other one that I didn't use? The other one that I didn't use is Babies. Are those the only two? Oh, and I didn't use Nurture. Hey, that's not bad. That's not bad for 2 looks. So I definitely have more that I can create in here, but all in all, I really like this palette. I mean, it's beautiful. I know that right now it maybe seems like I'm saying don't buy this palette, but if you love Natasha Denona formula and this is your color scheme, I totally give it 2 thumbs up so far. I mean, obviously I've only used it today for this look, but even just having a while that I had to like sit with this, it all looks great. I didn't use an eye primer. The color is all still there. I think it's beautiful. I just think You got to know what you're getting yourself into. You have to know what it's going to be and what it's not. I don't find that there's anything revolutionary in here compared to what Natasha has already given us. And she's given us some beautiful palettes, right? It's just that this is not like revolutionary. So that is that on that. Okay. I think you got my drift. All right, now let's talk about this face palette. So the palette is $48. I mean, these aren't the biggest pans, right? Like, but it is Natasha. I think the packaging is stunning. I love it. I mean, I love the rose gold detailing, obviously. You have to know that that's something that I just like totally adore. Again, though, I think the only reason to buy this is if you want the convenience of this 3-in-1. If you want the convenience of having a blush, a creamy, glowy situation, and then a powder highlight that is very, very beautiful. Like it is. It totally is. Because the cream blush doesn't blow me away. I'm sorry. Like you can call this a cream. I don't call it a cream. I don't call it a cream. It's like, it's not even as creamy as the MAC Glow Play blushes. Those have even a little bit more squish than this. The color is okay. It's okay, but it obviously only is one shade. It's not gonna work on everybody. Honestly, I mean, even as dark as I am right now, like maybe if I packed it on more, I could get more punch out of it or used it with like a dense brush, perhaps. I mean, I guess I totally could do that and get a little bit more rosiness out of this, but like anything past medium skin, I personally don't think that you're gonna see much impact from this. I'm glad that the highlight is not too dark. I was a little worried about that, but it's not, so that's good. I don't think that anything in here is like overly unique. So I think it's the convenience of having all of these in one to be able to layer, to have some options. I think it looks beautiful. Again, NATASHA DENONA makes beautiful products. I don't know that there's anything unique, especially if you have one of her other highlights, which I don't actually. This is my very first NATASHA DENONA highlight product. And of course I heard all the oohs and the ahs over the, was it like the Super Glow, like all the things. All the things I've heard are beautiful. This is very beautiful. For someone who really has gotten away from wearing a lot of highlighter, I think that this looks stunning. Like right now my skin is the most textured it's been in like a couple months at least. So it looks pretty darn good. If I had to do it again, what I wish it was this duo, just these two for like 30 bucks. I mean, well, if I could have it anyway, I'd do it for 10 or for free, but I think like the option to have a different blush. I mean, if I could have it any which way, I didn't need all 3 in one, especially if I have the option of buying a blush. If I had loved this blush formula, which I don't hate it, but I don't love it. If I had loved this blush formula, I would have preferred the option to get them singly and just like have it on the side, right? I don't need it all in one. I would probably have purchased the duo of the cream and the powder just because I think it feels really nice. I hope that the Glow Cream base maintains its consistency for a while. You never know when it's in something that probably isn't super airtight, but we will see. I think it's beautiful. I love the packaging. I love the look. It's just like the color of the blush is okay, but you know, I think it's probably gonna be one of those things that's an easy grab and go, like you don't need to put a lot of thought into it because I can't think of anything that this blush wouldn't work with. Okay, for what it is, if you have used NATASHA DENONA, I give this an A+. Compared to all of the eyeshadows, all of the palettes out there, I probably give this a B+ or a B, just because the shimmers aren't shimmy enough for me. They just aren't as much. And if I consider the fact that it's touted for having duo/multi-chromes in here, I would probably give it like, I mean, compared to other things, I'd probably give it like a C. I mean, this is pretty, but this is not gonna stop traffic. And we all know that there are multi-chromes out there that would stop traffic. So it's beautiful though. For what it is, for what NATASHA DENONA brings us, this is an A+. This is a B. It's a solid B. Like, because I think the Glow Cream base looked really beautiful, but wasn't necessarily anything whoa, you know, it's not like we don't have creamy things. I will say I do like that it's a little less wet than some of the like liquid glow things that I like the Auric Glow Lust, for instance, you know, the Lisa Eldridge highlighters, like those are more liquidy, right? This gives you, I think, that same feel, but it's a little less liquidy, right? I mean, obviously. The highlighter is beautiful. Like the minute I put it on, I was like, oh wow, for a powder highlight, this is actually very, very nice and very flattering. So I think if you have mature skin, if you are worried about like texture showing up, this is gonna be great for you, and you will probably consider it like an A. But for me, it's that cream blush. It's just like dragging it down. It's dragging down its friend. It's the one in the group project that isn't pulling its weight. So yeah, but if you know me, you know that I'm a blush lover, and so I'm kind of a blush snob. So I'm not regretting this at all, because I will definitely be pulling this out. Like I said, if it's for a day where I'm just like, I just need a blush, any blush, throw it on with a beautiful highlight, or if I just want to use the two highlights together. So that's not that big. Okay. Whoa, I think I started out strong. I started out strong and like succinct, and then it just got rambly and like more crazy as time went on. Oh well. So now we're gonna get into some comparison swatches, but if that doesn't interest you, if you really just wanted to know my thoughts on these, thank you so much for watching the looks and the review. I hope you found it helpful. For those of you that are curious about the comparison swatches, we're gonna get into that swatch party. I'm probably just gonna show you some up close swatches and we'll talk through it together. I hope I find some good dupes in case you are wanting to rummage through your collection first to see if you wanna get this palette. So let's get into that right now. Hi, it's Kelly from 2 days later. So really quick, I just wanted to show you this eye look because I did use this palette. I've actually used this palette for the last couple days. I didn't get any pictures or any video of the look that I did yesterday, but as far as this look goes, this is very simple. It's just the Nurture shade. It's trying to use the shades that I didn't use so far in the video. So I used the Nurture. That's that like kind of taupey brown. It actually, and I think it's because I used a fluffier brush, but it didn't go on the lid as dark as I thought it might, which is actually helpful. And then on the lid, I have Babies in my like inner lid, and then it is Serenity, that more like satiny taupey brown on the outside. Very pretty. And then I just ran that same matte on the lower lash line with just a little bit of aspiration enhancing the lash line. So very quick and easy. I also, today I used the Glow Base. Yes, the Glow Cream Base from this palette. And then for my blush, I just went through with the MAC Glow Play in Cheer Up. Love these. I also have not done any talking yet today, so please forgive the like husky voice. Anyway, I just wanted to take a second to show you this look. This is obviously just very quick, easy. It's early on Saturday morning. I am about to do the Swatch Fest. Jeremy and I were at a play last night, very, very late. So I got up a little later than I intended this morning. So I just needed quick makeup. So there you go, a quick makeup look for you there. Now, yesterday, just to give you some quick thoughts, I did use this Risk shade and I think Thrill. That's what I used on the lid. I used mattes that I'd already used, but that Risk shade, I used it on the outer portion, and it has the same finish almost as this Serenity shade. It's really more of like a satin or like a mature shimmer, if you will. It doesn't have a lot of babam, which I knew it wasn't going to. I did use it on a dry brush, but I really packed it on and it still just had, it's very flattering. The texture of it is going to be very flattering, but it doesn't have a lot of shine. So that's kind of what I thought it was going to be. That's what I thought both of these shades were going to be. Pretty, but not like, whoa, blow your skirt up if you're wanting every shimmer to be like shimmy. All right, so there's my quick little added thoughts. Now let's get into all of those comparisons. All right, so first what I'm gonna do is pull out some palettes from other brands. And honestly, I found a couple that I was like sort of surprised by. A couple that I haven't actually really seen a lot of comparisons to. But like I said, I haven't really watched a lot of other content on this collection because I didn't want to be swayed one way or the other. But I definitely got a couple. So I'm just gonna show each one with you and share a couple swatches of things that I think are similar. And then towards the end of this palette portion of these swatches, I'll share with you some other Natasha Denona comparisons. So this first one is one that right away I completely thought of, mostly because of one shade in here, but when I pulled it out, I was like, oh, there are actually quite a few similarities in here, more on the right side of the palette. But this is the Patrick Ta Major Dimension 2. So let me pop these up here. I'm gonna try not to blind you. My vanity is a land of chaos right now, so no judgment if you're seeing it in the mirror. But you can see here that we have some similar tones. The Major Dimension 2 maybe has a bit more rosy undertone. And obviously you're not getting the purples, you're not getting the like flippy multi-chrome, but there is a lot of similarity in here. So I'm gonna show you swatches for that. And I love the Major Dimension 2 palette. When I first got it, I couldn't put it down. There is some pretty good dupe shades here in here. And also I think it's interesting because, you know, NATASHA DENONA is known for her different formulas. And then of course you have in the Patrick Ta palette, you have those cream bases. They're not at all similar, but you still get the opportunity to play with different finishes. And so that's something right there. If you're drawn into more the warm side of this palette and you already have this one, maybe you don't need both. So let me go ahead and get some swatches on and we can compare. All right, here comparing the Patrick Ta Major Dimension 2 to the NATASHA DENONA My Dream. So the first swatches will be NATASHA DENONA and the second are in the Patrick Ta palette. So you can see these first two mattes here are not similar at all, but they are the two lightest in the palette. I wanted to just show you that. So if you need a lighter matte, the Patrick Ta palette obviously has that, but this is, I mean, other than, I guess I would say that neutral brown that I'm wearing today is lighter than this one, but as far as these peachy tones. And then here, honestly, I thought that Carpe Diem and the shade from the Patrick Ta, they aren't listed in here, so I'm sorry, I'm just gonna not say names. I thought this one would be more similar, but the Patrick Ta palette does lean more rosy, so you're going to get a little bit more of that rosy hue out of these two. Then these are two of the darker mattes. This one here is Familia from NATASHA DENONA, and then this one is in the Patrick Ta, so again, a little bit warmer. Now here is right away what I thought was actually going to be more similar. This is Thrill from NATASHA DENONA, and this is that one that has a very similar like pink to gold flip. Well, as you can see here, they aren't as similar as I thought they were going to be. The Patrick Ta one is actually more multi-dimensional, I would say. I mean, you'll have to tell me, I guess, but I think that this one is more multi-dimensional. Also, I'm noticing, though, that the Patrick Ta has more shimmer to it, which is a pro for some people and a con for others. There are like, it's tiny, tiny, tiny little reflex, but it does definitely have that. But this one is definitely more rosy. So then this is actually the two outer swatches here are the ones from the NATASHA DENONA My Dream. That's that rusty one called Risk. And then this is the Invention. Yeah, Invention. That's the more like orange coppery one. This is one of the shades in the Patrick Ta, which I thought like is a good combo of these. Like if you laid this one down and popped this one over the top, that's exactly the look that you'd get. So I just wanted to show these off. And then for kicks and giggles, I threw on the lightest shade, Spontaneous. That's this one here. Ooh, I put them on backwards. That's this one here is the NATASHA DENONA. And then this is the lightest shimmer in the Patrick Ta. So you can see, I mean, especially between these two, you're going to get more of like a creamy shimmer out of NATASHA DENONA. The Patrick Ta has more dimension, which I guess is aptly named since it's the Major Dimension palette. But so there are definitely some similar vibes in here, but no exact dupes. All right, I'm coming at you with one that I have not heard anyone compare, and I really think that there are some very similar vibes in this one. This is the Jackie Aina palette from Anastasia Beverly Hills. I love this palette. This is honestly, I mean, this is such a good palette. This is such a good palette, but check this out. So, I mean, am I wrong here? I don't think I'm wrong. Like, you've got some warm browns, you've got some of those like neutral shimmers, you've got, of course, those purples. They're not the same by any means, but there are some similarities. So I'm excited to swatch a few of these next to each other. Again, it's not exact dupes. That's not what I'm looking for. I was just looking to see like, hey, if you already have one of these, maybe everything that you need to make you happy is already in what you have. So I'm gonna swatch out some of these shades and we can see how close they are. Right, here we are comparing the palette to the Anastasia and Jackie Aina collab. So again, NATASHA first, Jackie second. So this is the shade Spontaneous, and then we have the shade Soleil. So these are not like dupes, but boy, I mean, you get a very similar vibe. So then right here, we have the shade Thrill from NATASHA DENONA, and then this is the shade Babies. So this one in the middle here is that gorgeous shade from Jackie's palette, Zam. I mean, not the same, but like, you know, you get a little bit of the same vibe. You're not going to get, obviously, that like flip, but it's so mild. It's so mild in this shade. Like, honestly, okay, it's just kind of, I don't know, that shade is like underwhelming to me. It's pretty, but it's not like, wow. So anyway, we're gonna move on. I've already given my thoughts on this palette. So again, here is something that is Not the same, but I just wanted to show them anyway. So this is the shade Serenity from Natasha Denona, and this is Lituation. So, I mean, Lituation is obviously much more cool toned, but it's another, you know, more like satiny tone. But here, look at these. Like, would you have thought from from looking at the palette, you would not think that these shades are so similar. So these are the two cream to powders in Natasha Denona. You've got Instinct and Edgy, and then these two shades are Pinker and Bigwig. Now, obviously, I just feel like Anastasia shadows are ones that, like, they just don't swatch super well. So, you know, these you could build up very well, but you could also shear them out, and I feel like they're so freaking close. Like, so close. Different formula, but close in shade. So boy, we're getting over my elbow, so it's getting to be a situation here. But this is the shade Familia, and this one here is Edges from the Jackie Aina palette. Now here is one that I feel like is much closer to Edges, and this is actually that shade Carpe Diem. Now these are the two deepest browns in the palettes. This is Aspiration, so much cooler toned, and then this one is Credit from the Jackie Aina, and this one, it's sort of hard to say in that awkward spot, but it has almost that like plummy undertone. So very pretty, but man, we have some in here. I'm telling you, like, this is a pretty good dupe the vibes situation here. Love this freaking palette. Like, oh, gotta love Jackie. All right, and of course, this is one that a lot of people have talked about, the Pat McGrath Mothership 2. So this is obviously the one, like, duochrome shade is going to be what most people compare to. I'm going to go ahead and swatch out a couple of the other shades to see how close we are. All right, really quick here, looking at the Pat McGrath Mothership 2. I think my arm is like starting to get angry from all of the wiping of the swatches, so you'll have to forgive some of these wonky swatches. But this, of course, is Thrill again, and this is VR Nectar. Honestly, like anytime I swatch any similar-ish shade next to Thrill, I'm like, wah, wah, like everything else. Literally every other shade has come up more beautiful. So in my opinion, this one it's just underwhelming. So then I did want to show this. This is again Serenity from Natasha Denona. I just wanted to swatch this one to see. I was looking to see if there was anything that was kind of similar, and there really isn't. This one here is Iconic in the Pat McGrath palette. It's definitely more like bronzy. Yeah, it's more bronzy, but similar finish. So they both have that like satin feel. Now here are the two darkest browns within the palettes. They are close-ish. This again is Aspiration, and then the one here is Dark. When I did my look using this, I love Pat McGrath mattes. I mean, I love Natasha Denona too, but I really do like this shade. They're both very pretty, but you know, so you have some similarities here, but there's definitely nothing that's an exact dupe, but that's maybe a good thing because I'd rather have this shade than this one. All right, again, this is really just going to be one that maybe dupes some of the neutrals in here, but let's face it, like sometimes that's what kind of draws us in. I know for me, I'm like, ooh, a creamy, warm brown. It's like you just see it swatched and it's like, ooh, that's so rich and pretty. And you know, then there's all these other shades that you like maybe don't reach for quite as much. But the one shade in here specifically, I mentioned it, I thought that Serenity sort of reminded me of what's in the Wayne Goss Luxury Eye Palette. So we're gonna do some comparisons. I think that we might have some similarities here. So this is one I'm gonna show, and I just wanna see like the finish difference. So our last non-Natasha Denona palette comparison, this is the Wayne Goss Imperial Topaz. So this is the shade Serenity from Natasha Denona. This again is the one that right away I was like, oop, that reminds me of the Wayne Goss. They're similar. Obviously, Serenity is just a little bit different and I think a little bit deeper, but kind of close. Now, these two definitely have a similar feel. However, this is Carpe Diem from Natasha Denona and it is matte. This is the warmer shade in the bottom of the palette of the Wayne Goss one. It is, I think actually Wayne might call it like a shimmer, but it's more of like a satin tone. But I mean, I really think that you could get a very similar look once you place these on the eye. Then these two are Familia, and then the darker brown in the Wayne Goss palette. Then here we have Spontaneous. Spontaneous from Natasha Denona. This is Wayne's Celestial shade. So this is definitely more of a topper feel. It has a little bit more of a glitter vibe to it. But again, on the eye, you could get a similar vibe. I wanted to swatch out the mattes just to see. And honestly, I mean, Natasha Denona just totally kills it here. Like, it's much more saturated. The Wayne Goss one is more of a, like a charcoaly black. You can almost see that in the palette. Like, when I had them side by side, even before I put them on my finger, I was like, oh, yep, this is going to be a bit more of a true black. I don't know. I mean, I've had the Imperial Topaz for a while now, so I don't know if it just, you know, it's an older palette, so maybe it's just getting a bit more dry, but I definitely like the feel of this better. Okay, before we hop into Indie, I do want to swatch next to some Natasha palettes. Now, there are three. Of course, I'm going to go ahead and there are just a couple shimmers that I think are maybe similar to what's in the Glam palette. Sorry, I'm totally blinding you. And then, of course, retro as well. So neither of these, as you probably well know, I mean, you're gonna look at these and be like, Kelly, these are not the same at all. But I think that there are a couple that if it's a shimmer that's really drawn you in, there are a couple that are kind of like close. So really quickly, I'm gonna compare to those as well. I also thought I would pull out the Natasha Denona Coral palette. So I think I got mine from BoxyCharm, and if you did as well, this might give you just enough of that like warm flavor. I'm really curious to see how some of these shades swatch out next to what we have. The other one that I wanted to pull out is Safari. Y'all, like, there are definitely some similar tones in here. We might be able to get some similar vibes. I think Safari is one of those palettes that you either love or hate. So I'm gonna definitely swatch some of these as well. So we're gonna do those in order right now. Okay, so there's not a lot of dupes here. I'm not really surprised, but I did just want to show you Glam. So this is Nurture from Dream. And then these are Blend and Crease from Glam. So, you know, this one is definitely like along the same lines depth-wise, but I would say it's like this one almost has a rosier brown underbase, and this one is more of a peachy brown. And then, of course, this one is much cooler. So then here we have the shade Babies, and then these two are definitely different. This is, let's see, what did I do here? So we have Center Eyelid and Inner Corner. I hated the names in this palette. Ugh. So then this one is Spontaneous, and then these two are Center Eyelid and Brow Bone. So, I mean, I don't know. On the eye, are you really going to notice the difference between these two? Maybe. I mean, really, like, even all three of those. All right, here we have some comparisons from Retro. So I put on Unity and Carpe Diem next to Go Go. So this is the one shade that is like even similar-ish. Some of this was just to show you in comparison. You can see how this is like a little rosier peach version. And then here, the two cream to powders in the Dream palette. We have Instinct and Edgy. And then I pulled out Groove, which is it might be a creamy matte, but it's a matte. And then this one is the cream to powder. This is Rebellion. So these two are from Retro. So, I mean, there's some definite like differences there. I wonder like if you blended this one out though even further. No, it's still kind of different from these. And obviously you're going to get a different finish from the cream to powders versus just the mattes. And then these are really the only two shimmers that I think are even somewhat close. So this is Babies and this is Hello. So Babies is, you know, like a little bit lighter, a little bit pinkier, whereas Hello has that almost like taupey, cool toned vibe to it. And so this is Dream versus Retro. Honestly, there are less similar shades than I maybe thought there were going to be. All right, really quickly, I just wanted to show you the Coral palette. The first one here is Unity from Dream, and this is the shade Lyria from Coral. And then this next one, again, is Carpe Diem from My Dream. And then the one next to that is the shade Dakota from the Coral palette. And then these are the two kind of like rusty shimmers. So this is Risk from Dream. And then this last one is that beautiful Lola shade from the Coral palette. Honestly, I wish that this had the foil finish that this has. And then here we have the two lightest shades in the palettes. We have Spontaneous and then Kai from Coral. So there are definitely some similarities in here. I mean, I think you could get a very similar vibe if you like a warm, peachy story, like if that's what really draws you into this palette and you have Coral. I don't really think you need this. I don't really think you need any of it. Let's be honest. It's just eyeshadow. Here we have a few shades from Safari versus My Dream. So I do feel like, again, Natasha has duped herself a little bit. These two are pretty close. This is the shade Amira from Safari, and then this is Carpe Diem. Sorry, getting a little high there. And then this is Familia versus Thorn. Now, this one is Edgy from the My Dream palette, and I will say I have hard pan now. I have hard pan on the two cream to powder shades from using my finger in them. I'm definitely going to have to like take care of that. It's all in the sake of swatching for all of you, but I definitely don't recommend using fingers in those shades. And then this one is Masai from the Safari palette. Now here I took the shade Aspiration out of the Dream palette, and then these are the two deeper browns from the Safari palette. We have Voodoo, which is obviously like a little bit more purple toned, and then this one is Shea. So they're not like really the same, but honestly, I mean, I feel like this one is just like a more purpley version of this. So not exactly dupes, but I just wanted to give you the vibe of these. Now, obviously, because Safari is an entirely matte palette, you aren't going to have any shimmer dupes, but just wanted to show you this one. Hey lovelies, so now we're going to be getting into the comparisons to my single shadows. I've changed again because this is the third day. Honestly, this video has taken me so long to put together. I hope it's helpful in some way. I hope you enjoy it. I've had to do this in snippets throughout 3 days, and I can't wait to go edit this and get it all together for all of you. So after already doing Swatch Fest with palettes, what I did was I went through, I focused on one of the shimmers that's in here. I did the two duochromes, of course. Then I have two brands of indie mattes that I love to use, and that's Sydney Grace and Divina Cosmetics. So I've sort of done comparison swatches of mattes that I have that are similar to shades in here. So we're gonna get into those right now. All right, let's start out with the singles comparisons. Honestly, I had a hard time finding something because this is just, honestly, y'all, it's a little lackluster. This is Thrill. Here we have Divina Tucana. This one here is Goddess from Glam Shop. I actually thought they might be kind of similar, but obviously Thrill has a little bit, well, a lot bit more of that like nudie gold. This is a little bit brighter. And then this is Super Duper from Glam Shop. So nothing, I mean, this just looks so washy, whispery, like really, but these are the closest. I was looking for that like pink to gold shift, and here's kind of what I found. All right, here we have the one that everyone has been talking about. This is Vision from the palette. And then here I have Terra Moon's Head Rush. We have Divina Cosmetics Australis, and then Divina Asteria. So this is not the same, but in the pan, it's so interesting because you see a lot more, I don't know, a lot more similar shifts. Like here, they actually look quite a bit the same, but then here you get almost more of that like blue-green from it. So let me pull these in just a little bit closer. Hopefully you can see there. I mean, honestly, I think Head Rush is the closest just because of like the texture. Australis is almost too creamy and way too pigmented to be similar. This one is way more sparkly. Honestly, I mean, I like all of the other ones better. I'm not gonna lie. So here are what I have in my collection that are even close to similar. I think Head Rush is probably the winner. All right, since this is one of my favorites in the palette, I wanted to see what I had close to babies. So here we have Sydney Grace Paris, Sydney Grace Blushed. This one I have been wearing a lot recently because it was in my Build Your Own palette from last month, my go-to kind of like grab and go everyday palette. Love that one. This is Divina Diva. It's obviously quite a bit darker, but I just wanted to swatch it to see what it was like. And then this one, if you've been around, if you've been around the Single Shadows block for a while, this is the original Makeup Geek Grandstand. It's pretty darn close. These are all really pretty. Here we have comparisons with some Divina Cosmetics mattes. Now, as I've said before, Divina mattes don't always swatch the best. They're a very silky formula, but they aren't as creamy, if that makes any sense. So here we have Unity next to Zarina, and then we have the shade Aspiration next to Manic. This is such a pretty shade. They're pretty darn close. I love Manic. This is a favorite of mine. And then we have Familia next to Bambi. Bambi in the pan doesn't look that similar, but they are pretty close. So then here we have Instinct. That's the lighter cream to powder. This one is Virago, probably one of their most popular mattes, I would imagine. And then this is Blackest Black next to Karma. It's a very black. All right, so our last set compared to Sydney Grace, we have Unity, and this is Footprints. I think this is a pretty popular one. Then this one is Carpe Diem and Southern Flame. I know that these aren't exact. These ones are almost closer, but I just wanted to pull out similar shades. This is Familia, and then I picked out two browns. Neither of them are a dead ringer. It's almost like this one, which is Abundance is a little too rosy warm. Peach Fuzz is pretty close, but it's a little bit cooler. Familia is fairly warm. And then these two, while they look super patchy, it's just because my arm is getting kind of angry. But this one, again, is that shade Aspiration from the Natasha Denona palette. And then this shade is Beyond. They're pretty close to each other. So hopefully that is helpful. All right. I'm gonna give my arm a rest now. I hope that this was helpful. I hope you enjoyed it. How do I feel after doing this Swatch Fest? What did I learn? Other than the fact that I have a lot of eyeshadow, which I technically already knew, but having to go through this made me realize that. You know, honestly, it just furthered my opinion on what I mentioned earlier in this video. This is a pretty palette, but it's not revolutionary. There is literally nothing in this palette that isn't already done by another brand. The one thing that I think this palette has going for it is it's a beautiful color story. It gives you a nice variety of neutrals, warms, and cools. And it's Natasha Denona's formula, which most of the time is pretty easy to use. So it's also a great little size. Like this midi size palette I think is really good. You know, so I don't regret buying it at all. At this point, I have to know that most of what I buy is going to be similar to something else within my collection. I do want to note, I think I said it in one of the other swatches, but just in case you're rounding up here to the end, I do want to note that I do have some pretty good hard pan going on in the two creamy, in the two cream to powder formulas. Those aren't really great to swatch with your finger, so don't do that. I'll probably just end up scraping up a little bit. And I do also want to note here at the end of this video that since doing the beginning, like first impressions, I have used both the face and eye palette a couple more times, and my thoughts still are the same as what I said earlier in the video. But I want to thank you. Boy, if you are still here and you've been through the whole video, leave a star emoji down below, because you are my star. This was a long one, I'm sure. And I hope that you found it helpful. If you did, please don't forget to give it a like. It really does help me out here on my channel. And you'll have to let me know, did you pick up anything from this collection? What are your thoughts? I would be really curious to know as well. Thank you so much, lovelies. I'm gonna go outside and edit this video, try to get a little vitamin D, and I will see you really soon.